the world.
Oh, wow.
So Sheila Jordan, here she is, the jazz icon and superstar. I love Sheila. She's a true jazz child. Um, so Sheila, would you like to say hello to all the listeners?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's well and staying healthy and safe during these strange, scary times. So I'm up here on the mountain in my little house, and my daughter's with me. So everything is cool. So I just am very pleased, and thank you, Ava, for having me on your program. I'm very thrilled to be here.
I am very honored, Sheila. I'm really honored. I think you still remember the first interview. The first time I interviewed, it was for Jazz Italia, that online magazine, and it was a very long and beautiful interview that was even published in Russia and in other places around the world. But that was a written one. Now we're having a live one.
Um,
I'm really happy because I'm so very fond of you. I love you so much, and
Thank
I
you.
love your music and your spirit. You know the way you are inside. You are such a blessing and such a generous soul. You know.
Thank you so much, Ava. Thank you. What beautiful things to say. So I'm very happy to be here, and I hope everybody's well. And I just want to say hello to everybody, those who know me, those who don't know me. Kisses of love.
That's great. So Sheila, I would like to ask you um, to talk about your life, your memories. When you grew up and you were a child and how you got into jazz music and bebop especially, and um, the New York scene when you were singing.
hmm So you want me to talk about how it all started?
Yes.
Okay, well, I was born in Detroit, Michigan on Mickey Mouse's birthday. Me and
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse shared the same birthday, same day, same time, same year. In other words, when they came out with Mickey Mouse, I was born. So he's like my brother. And my mother was only 17 years old, so she really couldn't raise me. So I was with her for a couple of months as a little baby in Detroit. And then she sent me back to Pennsylvania to stay with my grandparents, who lived in a coal mining town near Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And I grew up with the coal miners, the coal mining area. And my grandmother raised me, and my grandfather raised me. The both of them raised me until I was about 14. But up until that time, we were very poor. There was a lot of alcoholism in my family. My grandfather was a very bad alcohol addict, and he tried his best, but he was also part Native. So I'm from Native background on my mother's side, which is Seneca Nation. My fifth generation grandmother is Queen Aliquippa, was Queen Aliquippa of the Seneca Nation. So, uh, alcoholism was very prevalent in my family. I mean, everybody in the family drank and had a very serious drinking problem. In fact, my mother died from the disease years later. But everybody had the problem except one aunt, one of my mother's sisters, who was like my big sister. So I was raised with her. But other than that, it was heavy, but I sang. I sang all the time because I was very unhappy. I mean, a lot of times we didn't have food, and and I was just an unhappy kid, and it was cold. We didn't have any heat in our house. We didn't have a toilet in our house. We had to walk almost a half a block or more to go to the outhouse. And it was hard times, really, really hard times. And I know that I sang all the time because I felt better when I sang. I would start singing and constantly. My grandfather, my grandfather's nickname for me was Little Song. He called me Little Song because I was always singing. But the singing made me feel better. And when I was, and then it got better. Things got a little better, but not great. And then at 14, my grandmother and my grandfather let me go to live with my mother in Detroit. And my mother at the time was working. She worked in a bar. She was a barmaid, and she had many marriages. And in those days, you didn't live with somebody. Common law marriage was like a sin. So she was married about, oh my God, I bet she was married about 7 times. And but I remember the last husband that she was with. I was in high school there, and I stayed with her. I lived with her and this last husband that she was with. His name was Max. I didn't like him at all. He wasn't nice, and he was a gambler. And but I remember that I went to high school. I went to Commerce to take a typing course, and then there was also the great high school across from Commerce. There was a bridge that you could go to either one of these high schools, and the other high school was called Cass Tech, which is still there. So a lot of the young musicians went to Cass Tech. I think Cass uh, I didn't know what kind of music I wanted to sing, but I sang, as I said, from a very early age. And I went, I had a nickel, and there was a jukebox across the street from the high school where the kids would go. They would have a hamburger. It was a hamburger place. And you'd go there and you'd buy your lunch, and they had this jukebox. And I remember I was always putting a nickel in to hear the music. And, the songs of the day were hip. It's what jazz people today, play. It was the George Gershwin, Cole Porter, uh, Rodgers and Hammerstein. It was all those great composers. And I remember I looked, I was looking in the jukebox to see, what do I want to play today? And I saw Charlie Parker and this rebop, not beboppers, reboppers. And I said, oh, Charlie Parker. And I wonder what that sounds like. So Charlie Parker and his reboppers. Now's the time. So I put my nickel in, and I heard 4 notes, and I said, oh my God, my skin was crawling. It was like, oh wow. Okay, my life. And from that on story.
Just a second, Sheila. I think you froze on the screen. Oh, I'm really sorry. Probably the line. Um, Probably Sheila wasn't having a very good connection. So I guess we have to end this broadcast here and come on with a new broadcast in a few minutes, unless she can come back to it. Um, because I wouldn't know what to say without her here with me. Um, So, like, meanwhile, while I'm waiting for Sheila to connect, I could, play some of her music. Um, okay, she's back. This is great.
Sorry.
This
Um,
is great. You're
up
back.
on, we're up on top of a mountain, so we don't get the greatest reception up here.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I found out that there was a little place in downtown Detroit where kids could go and play this music. Because they didn't sell alcohol there, and it was run by a Canadian couple, a man and his wife from Canada. And so I went down there, and that's where all the young cats hung out. Barry, as I said, Barry Harris, Kenny Burrell, and Tommy Flanagan. I grew up with them, and there was these two young guys there that were singing, Skeeter Spite and Leroy Mitchell. So I went up to them and I said, "Can I sing with you?" And they said, "Sing what?" And I said, "Well, can I sing Bird?" And they said, "Yeah, you can sing with us, but you have to stop drinking." At that time, I was drinking, teenager drinking, out of high school, just out of high school or in high school, whatever. And so I said, "Oh, okay." So of course I did, and I got together. I used to get together with them. Their name was Skeeter Spite and Leroy Mitchell. I believe that Skeeter Spite was one of the is the greatest scat singer I ever heard in my life. He was incredible. Didn't have any lessons, nothing like that, but was like a loved Bird. They loved Bird. Everybody loved Charlie Parker and bebop music. So they took me under their wing, and so we had a little trio. It was fantastic. So I remember there was a little concert hall called the Greystone Ballroom. And again, kids could go there because they didn't sell alcohol. So Bird came to town and was playing at the Greystone Ballroom. And oh my God, we were so thrilled. I said, "Oh my God, Bird's at the Greystone Ballroom. I can't believe it." So we went, and there was a very wonderful saxophone player, Billy Mitchell. He was much older than us, who lived in Detroit at the time. And so we were at this concert of Birds, and obviously Billy Mitchell told Bird that there were three young kids that sang his tunes, all of his compositions. And so Bird took a break, and Billy Mitchell told him that. So then Bird went back up on stage after the break and played one tune, and then stopped. And after he finished, and stopped and announced that there were three young kids in the audience who sang his compositions, and he would like them to come up and sing one of his compositions with him. This was Charlie Parker. And we were looking around, wow, I wonder who that is. It was even us, but we never in a million years thought it was us. So we went up. The drummer was Max Roach. The piano player was Duke Jordan. The bass player was Tommy Potter. And it was Charlie Parker. I think Miles might have been with him, but I don't remember offhand because all I remember was it was Bird, my idol. So we went up, and I think we sang Confirmation. I can't remember, but we did it. Charlie, of course, we did Charlie Parker composition, and everybody clapped, and Bird was smiling from ear to ear, and we did our song, and then we came off, and then during the break, the second break, Bird came over to us and he said, "You kids sounded wonderful." And they looked at me and he said, "And you kid, you have $1 million ears." And I thought, "What are $1 million ears? $1 million ears? What?" Is money going to start coming out of my ears? I mean, I was so young, and I had no clue what was going on. All I knew is I loved this music, and I wanted to sing it for the rest of my life, which I've done. So that was the beginning. And then I met Frank Foster, a wonderful saxophone player, plus a composer, and also he took over the Count Basie band years later. But he moved from Cincinnati to Detroit, and he became my boyfriend. And I left home when I was 17 because I couldn't stand this man that my mother was married to, and I just wanted to be away. And I was working anyway. I was doing part-time office work. So I found a place where you could stay, young women could stay, called the Evangeline Home, and you could get your meals there, and your room and board, and it was nice, and it was cool. I was just happy to be away from that creepy man she was married to. And so when I met Frank, we became girlfriend boyfriend, and then I moved. He and I moved in together and got a furnished room and lived over on John R. in Detroit. So we lived there until Frank was drafted into the army, and he went into the Korean War. And when he went into the Korean War, I knew that I had to get to New York. And at one point, and when Frank went into the army, that was it. I said, "Now I'm going to move to New York," which I did. And it didn't matter because I was quite young, but I could type and I could support myself, which I've been doing. And I said, "I'm going to go to New York. There's nothing keeping me here in Detroit." Plus, the racial prejudice was horrible in Detroit at the time. Not that it isn't bad now or that it wasn't bad in New York, but in Detroit, I was always being taken down to the police station by the cops. They were always taking me down, questioning me why I was hanging out with Afro kids or Afro people. And even in high school, I remember one time, all my girlfriends were Afro kids. They were all, uh, uh, girls from the African race. And
Yeah.
at that time, my principal called me into the office. The principal of the high school called me into the office and said, "You dress so nice. Why do you hang out with colored girls?" And at that time, I don't know. It was like something came and always helped me out during these situations. When she said color, I said, "Color? Purple? Orange? Yellow? Pink? Blue? Colored? What color?" And it pissed her off. She said, "Get out of here." But I just was, in my heart and soul, I said I didn't have that kind of thing going on. So,
Of
and
course.
that was the principal of the high school that asked me that. So anyway, getting back, Frank wanted, then I met Frank. As I said, we shared we had a furnished room, and we were boyfriend and girlfriend for a long time. And then he had drafted into the Korean War, and I came to New York. And at that time, 52nd Street, the old 52nd Street was happening. So all of the clubs were the Downbeat Club. Oh my God, all of them. They were incredible. And you could go anywhere and hear anybody. Bud Powell in his prime was unbelievable. Nobody played like Bud Powell when he was in his prime. Oh my God, it was not to be not to be believed. And of course, Thelonious Monk and Max Roach. I remember what we at that one concert we went to before when I was in Detroit at the Greystone Ballroom. Skeeter and Mitch and I, the guys I sang with, we during the break we went up and asked Max who he thought the greatest drummer was. We wanted to know what drummer he thought was the greatest drummer in the world, on the scene, and we wanted to hear who he thought was, and he said, "I am." So we looked at each other, and then we said, "Yeah, he is the greatest singer." But anyway, then Max was, of course, living in New York. All the big time bebop musicians were in New York, and so it was incredible. And of course, my main purpose was that Bird was here. So I saw Max, and I met Charlie Mingus, and by that time I was looking for a teacher, and it was Charlie Mingus and Max Roach who recommended Lenny Tristano. So I called up Lenny, and Lenny says, "Well, I don't really teach singers. I don't have any singers, but I'd be glad to help you since you come so highly recommended by Mingus and Max."
Yeah.
So I started taking lessons with Lenny Tristano. My first lesson was he wanted me to learn a Charlie Parker composition. Now's the time. I said, "I know it." And he looked at me and said, "You do? Sing it." So I sang it. And he said, "Oh, you do know it." And so, I felt like, well, And then he said, "Okay, how about Prez?" I said, "Prez, you mean Lester Young?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, no, I don't know Prez. I don't know Prez." He said, "Okay, I want you to learn Prez's solo on, I forgot what the recording was, but I learned it. I learned it. But the most important thing studying with Lenny was that he encouraged the students, and he encouraged me to just be me, not try to sing like anybody else. And I never did anyway because I loved Billy, I loved Sarah, I loved Ella. Ella was and is the greatest scat singer to this day to me. Nobody has the heart and soul of Billie Holiday as far as I'm concerned. And Sarah Vaughan had the most glorious voice of anybody singing to this day. Sarah Vaughan's voice was unbelievable. And I knew that, I knew all that. But still, my thing was Charlie Parker. I was an old bebopper. So I never tried to sound like any of them. I just sang my thing. And that got me through. So I studied with Lenny, and it was at Lenny's that I started doing bass and voice. Now we're talking about the very early 50s, you know? That's when I started to study with Lenny, through thanks to Max and thanks to Charles Mingus. Peter and the bass player from London, who was living in New York and also studying with Lenny, and I asked him if he would like to do some bass and voice. I just heard the bass all the way back then in the early 50s uh, because I had worked at this club in the village called the Page 3. And I worked there on Monday and Tuesday nights. And the bass player at that time was Steve Swallow. And he was playing acoustic bass. So I tried, during my little set that I did, I tried the bass and voice all the time. So I loved it. And I loved the way Swallow played, which was acoustic at that time. But that was during the same time that I was studying with Lenny. So anyway, Lenny just gave me courage, and of course, trying out ideas with Peter and the bass player. And I just knew that this bass and voice was something very special for me. Uh, so as I said, I was working at this club in the village just before my daughter was born. And Duke wasn't really around that much because he had the very serious problem of heroin addiction. So he was in and out. He'd be with us but be with me for a while, and then he'd leave and go somewhere else. And I didn't know, and I didn't question. Uh, because by this time I was really into the music, and that was the most important thing to me. And I had gotten close with Charlie Parker, so he was like my big brother. He was never a romance or anything. But anyway, I was working at the Page 3, I remember, and Steve Swallow was there one of the nights I worked. I worked there 2 nights. one night was called jazz night, and the other night was just straight ahead, music. They had like a stripper who took their clothes off, and they had a tap dancer and a comedian, So they had all these different acts. But on Monday night, it was jam session night. That was only music. So I was singing with Swallow and this piano player, Johnny Knapp. No, and sometimes, people would come in to hear the music. And this guy came in one time. His name was George Russell. And he came in to hear his student, who was Jack Riley, and also to hear Steve Swallow, because he knew them, and they were students of George Russell. And so he heard me, and he came over during the break after I sang with the guys, and he said, "Where do you come from to sing like that?" And I said, "I come from hell, man." Yeah. He said, "Hell?" I said, "Yeah." I thought, "Who is this guy, George Russell?" I didn't know who he was. And so he said, "Can I visit hell with you one day?" And I said, "Yeah." So I gave him my telephone number, and he called me. He called me. It wasn't that long afterwards that he called me. And I remember at the time I was working at the Page 3. The second night was not Steve Swallow. It wasn't the jam night. It was the night I told you with all the different people. The piano player was this great piano player who was very quiet, soft spoken, didn't speak very often, or very much for that matter, but played incredible. His name was Herbie Nichols. And I worked with Herbie Nichols on that second night. Oh my God, what a treat. I went on an excursion with him. It was one of my first out of body experiences, because we did have them. I've only had a few of them. You don't have that many, because if there were too many, then it wouldn't be special. But it was an out of body. I actually left my body and I was floating over. It was like floating over. You didn't know where you were, but you weren't there, but you were there. It was I can't explain them. People have had them and they know what I'm talking about. You might have had one, because it's really special. But anyway, getting back to the Page 3, uh, I kept working there, and by this time, I had my daughter, so I made $6 a night. I paid the babysitter $4, and I took a taxi home because it was 4 o'clock in the morning. That's how late we stayed, and I took a taxi, and I had $1 left sometimes. Big deal, but I didn't do it for the money, because as I said, I had my office job where I was doing my typing, and that paid my rent, bought my daughter's clothes, bought us food, whatever, paid for all the bills. Anyway, George Russell called me, and he said, "I'd like you to come down. I want to play something for you. Can you come down?" I said, "Yeah, well, I have to pick my daughter up at nursery school, but I'll be down." So I said, "I'll come before I pick her up." So I went by George's studio on Bank Street. I think it was on Bank Street down in the village on the west side. And I went into his studio. He said, "Sit down. I want you to hear something." So I said, "Okay." So I sat down, and he started playing something. It was beautiful. And then he stopped. He said, "Okay, sing." And I said, "Sing what?" He said, "Sing You Are My Sunshine." I said, "What?" He said, "I'd like you to sing You Are My Sunshine." I said, "You're going to play for me, right?" He said, "No, no, no. Sing it alone. Sing it like you used to sing it when you were a kid in Pennsylvania with your grandparents. When you used to sing at the little club, private club that the coal miners went to drink. And you sang You Are My Sunshine." I said, "Oh, no, I can't." He said, "Yes, you can. Sing it." So I said, "Okay." So I sang You Are My Sunshine. So George was playing, and then after I sang it, the second chorus, he brought in all these little intricate little wonderful little things he was playing on the piano. Well, as it turned out, he was recording for Riverside, and he called me up. He said, "I want you to come up to the recording. Can you?" And I said, "Yeah." This was later, of course, not that much later though, a few months later. And I said, "Yeah, I can." And it was, early enough that it was on a weekend, so I had somebody take care of my daughter, and I went up. And he said, "I want you to get in that booth over there." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I want you to sing." I said, "Sing what?" He said, "I want you to sing You Are My Sunshine." I said, "Oh my God, what?" He said, "Yes, I want you to sing for the coal miners." So I got in the booth, and that was my very first time I recorded. And it was on a recording of George Russell's called The Outer View. And actually, it's on YouTube. You can hear it on YouTube. And he wanted to change the title to a drinking song because when we went up to this club with my grandmother, who was still alive at the time, everybody was drinking. And that's when the old out of work coal miner asked me to sing "You Are My Sunshine." So anyway, I said, "Okay." So I sang "You Are My Sunshine," and it was recorded on Riverside, and it's on a George Russell recording. And as I said, you can hear it on YouTube. It's a recording that he did. The name of the recording, the whole recording, is called "The Outer View," and he wanted to rename it a drinking song, but they wouldn't let him change the title. So anyway, so after that, George called me up and he said, "I want you to do a demo of a couple of songs." I said, "What for?" He said, "Just do it. Come and do it." So I said, "Okay." So I recorded this demo, and he took it around. He took it to Quincy Jones, who was the A&R man at Mercury, I believe, and he took it to Blue Note. Now, Blue Note had never recorded a singer. They only recorded instrumentalists at that time. We're talking about the original Blue Note owners, which was Alfred Lyon and Francis Wolff. But Alfred Lyon was, the big shot there. And they were good friends and had been, prisoners in the war. They were put in concentration camps, and so they came to New York City on a boat that brought over people. Somehow they sneaked on the boat and got through, and it was well. Anyway, that's their story. But I remember George got me that recording, and so he went with Blue Note because he felt that that would be very special, being the first singer ever to record on Blue Note. So he said, "And I have the rhythm section." I said, "Well, yeah, I'll work with the guys that I work with, piano, bass, and drums." He said, "No, no, you're going to work with guitar, bass, and drums." I said, "Guitar? I don't sing with the guitar." He said, "Well, you will now." The guitarist was Barry Galbraith, a beautiful guitarist, very underrated, but any great guitar player will know who Barry Galbraith was. So it was Barry Galbraith on guitar, Steve Swallow on acoustic bass, and Denzel Best on drums. And I recorded Portrait of Sheila. So that was that recording. And that's how that all happened. But I'm not a big one on recordings. I don't go out, you know, knocking on doors and knocking on recording companies saying, "You got to record me." I don't do that. I'm not into that. Anyway,
Still, you have plenty. You have plenty of recordings. You
yeah,
have a lot.
because I've been asked to be a guest, or
Yeah.
a record company has gotten in touch with me and said, "We'd like to record you," and then I do it. But other than that, I don't go out and try to hustle up recording gigs. I never did and never will. It's the same with jobs. I don't do that either. I'm shocked that I worked as much as I have. And I am set to do another recording, but I just haven't gotten around to doing it. I have been a guest on a lot of different singers, recordings lately. I mean, I'm on Dina DeRose, a wonderful piano player and singer who teaches in Graz, which is a workshop that I had started in the early '80s because I started doing teaching, and they started uh, inviting me over to different countries to do workshops. And that was one of the places I went, and they wanted me to stay there and be the permanent teacher there. But I didn't want to be away from my daughter that long or New York City that long. But I did do a semester, and then I started getting different uh, singers who taught, like Jay Clayton. I got her over there. I got several different people over there. And the last person was Dina DeRose, who is now there permanently. So that was great, and I loved it. And I go back to Graz once in a while. And then Max Roach and Dr. Billy Taylor got me a gig teaching at the University of Massachusetts in the summer. They have this program called Jazz in July. And they had a teacher there, but she was yelling and screaming and breaking the spirit of the singers. And these singers were paying good money to take this 2 week course. It's at Jazz in July. It's
Yeah.
it said it was a 2 week course, and they were paid good money. And they don't want to be yelled at and told they can't sing and called, you turkeys can't sing. And
Oh,
of course, the kids or the young, some of them weren't that young. I mean, it didn't matter what age you were. If you wanted to sing, that's where you went. It was great. So they complained. They said, we don't want to be yelled at and put down. That's not what we're paying for. We're paying to get instructions and somebody to help us, to give us courage and strength and, show us things that we need to know. So Max and Billy and Dr. Fred Tillis, who was the head of the department, he's just recently passed away, but he was the head there. And I had, by this time, was doing a lot of bass and voice concerts with Harvey S. And he had been at one of my concerts with Harvey in Amherst. And he came up to me afterwards and he asked me if I would like to teach there. And I said, yeah. He said, yeah, well, Max and Dr. Taylor and myself would love to have you come and be the teacher for Jazz in July for 2 weeks. It's only 2 weeks, but I think you'll like it. So I said, yeah, but you already have a teacher. He said, don't worry about that. I'll get rid of her. The kids don't like her. She's very insulting and whatever. So I said, okay, but have somebody else teach in between because I don't want her to think I took her gig. So he said, okay. So that's what happened. He had another singer come in from Montreal and teach for the next 2 weeks. And then after that, I went and I taught, and I've been there ever since. And I still do it. And that's Jazz in July. So that's how it all started for me. Actually, the University of Massachusetts gave me a doctorate degree. And so
yes.
oh, yeah, it was on, I think it was on internet or something.
Yes, but I mean, you should be saying this during an interview. I know about it, but this is a great moment, right?
I was honored. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I had all of these awards on my wall that I've been given. Originally, they were in the closet because I was too embarrassed to hang them up. And my daughter came and she opened the closet one time and said, "What is all this?" I said, "Well, those are my awards." She said, "What are they doing in here?" I said, "Well, you know." She said, "No, we're going to hang them on the wall." I said, "No, that's showing off." She said, "No, it isn't. You earned them." I'm putting them up. So they're up on the wall now.
Yes, and that's where they should be. That's exactly where they should be. They should be out, and everybody
And
should be seeing them. You know, because not everybody receives such a recognition. You know, so I'm glad you got it because you really deserve it.
well, yeah, and then I got that talent deserving wider recognition in Downbeat magazine 9 times. And I
Yeah,
finally went to them and said, you know what? Give this to somebody else. You've already given it to me 9 times, for God's sake. You know, so. But I have a lot of awards. So they're hanging on the wall. I'm a little embarrassed, but people come by and see them and read them. And then I really get embarrassed. But yeah, it's kind of nice. It's really beautiful. So,
so, what are your plans now? I think you had some tours canceled by the corona.
yes, all of them. I
Yeah,
have never worked as much in my life as I have this past couple of years. It's been unbelievable. All of a sudden, I'm getting calls from all over the world. I did have an agent, but I wasn't signed with him. But he was getting a lot of calls about me, and he called me up and asked me if he could represent me when he gets these calls for me. And I said, of course, but I'm not going to sign with you. I'm not going to sign with any agent. I don't want to sign with any agent. And he said, no, that's okay. He's a lovely man. So I've been getting gigs through him. And then musicians from all over the world, like from Italy, they call me or they write me and ask me would I do a tour with them. And a lot of times I don't even know them, like
yeah,
different other places. Not necessarily Italy, but Spain, say.
yeah.
And I say, yeah, but we have to rehearse. And I have great lead sheets, which I teach when I'm teaching. That I have great lead sheets that that I that I think are of the utmost importance for singers, because my lead sheets have the melodies, the chord changes, the lyrics, the name of the composer underneath the title of the song, and my name up in the right hand corner.
I
And it
have
has,
I have some of your lead
oh
sheets.
yeah, and you know what I'm talking about. So anyway,
Yes.
I do that, and I never have a problem. And I usually, well, always, I don't want to rehearse the day of the concert. I like to get there the day before the concert early so that I can rehearse later in the afternoon or that evening. I don't want to
Yeah.
rehearse the day of the concert. I will go through the order the day of the concert at the sound check, but I want to do the rehearsing before just in case there's a problem with one of the compositions. But the important thing for singers is that they should be able to have a good lead sheet. That's the most important thing in the world is having a good lead sheet. If you have a good lead sheet, you will have no problem. The only thing I ask when it's going to be a rhythm section that I've never worked with before, there's two things. I say, do they swing, which is important? Are they swingers? Can they really swing? And do they read? They have to read. And if they can do both of those, we're set. So
Yeah.
I've never had really two. Only one time do I remember that, and it was in No, it was in Australia, and this piano player was not to what I'm into, so we had a rough time. But the drummer was unbelievable, unbelievable. He knew all the tunes, he knew the lyrics, blah 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 blah, and of course the bass player. So and the fact that I'm the originator of the bass and voice, which goes all the way back to the Blue Note days, I didn't have a problem. I just told the piano player, when in doubt, lay out, man. That's what Bird used to say. When in doubt, lay out. The other thing Bird used to say is if you can't say it in two choruses, you'll never say it. I remember one time I was singing some tune and I was improvising, and every chorus I couldn't make it. I mean, I couldn't get to what I wanted to what I wanted to sing musically, say musically, I should say. And I kept going on and on and on, and oh my God, it must have been 20 choruses or more. And finally, words came in my ear. If you can't say it in two choruses, you'll never say it. And then I jumped down. I said, "Oh yeah, okay." And I remembered that. Yeah, but
Oh,
lead sheets are very, very important. A good lead sheet is if you have a good lead sheet and you have instrumentalists that you've never worked with, but they swing and they read music, you'll have no problem. And on my lead sheets, I don't usually don't have an introduction written. Once in a great while I will, but I usually have it open because maybe I only want 4-bar intro or 8-bar intro or vamp till ready intro or no intro, just a chord. But I always have my endings written in, but I never have my intros written in because I change. So it works out well. I've not had any problems.
and
And
yeah.
what else?
Well, since we have musicians and many singers listening to this interview, and will be listening because now it's live, but it will be on Facebook as long as ever. And I will also upload it to YouTube. So I would like you to give some, apart from this about the lead sheets, but some of your very precious and generous suggestions to singers.
Okay, the first thing I'm going to say to singers is pick a song that you really like. Don't sing something because you think, oh, well, so and so and so and so, but you're really not into it. Why would you want to sing something you're not into? Pick a song that you're truly into, that you really feel you can sing, that touches your heart, that touches your soul, that's part of you. That's the kind of song you want to sing. And you'll know it. You'll know what I'm talking about because I'm sure you've probably done songs like that already. So pick a song that you truly feel married to, okay? Uh, Secondly, pay to have a good lead sheet made on it. It might cost you $10 or whatever, but it's so well worth it. And then in learning the song, learn that song exactly as it's written. Do not learn that song from another singer on a record. Don't
Yeah,
do that because you're going to learn it the way they sing it. And trust me, in jazz anyway, singers in jazz will not be singing the song the way it's written. They will be changing it. Don't try to sing a song from from me because you'll never get it. So please get the original sheet music and learn it exactly the way it's written, note for note. Then, if you can't do it yourself, get somebody to put it in your key and get some good chord changes, and then learn from the chord changes, learn a little guideline. So this guideline will always be in your head when you're singing, especially if you're improvising, scat singing. And another thing I want to talk about, since I mentioned scat, is there is a scat virus going around. A scat virus, and if you don't feel or don't are not comfortable scatting, don't feel you
don't do
have
it.
to.
Yeah.
That's right. Why would you do it? And the second thing is, even if instrumentalists tell you, well, you're not a jazz singer if you don't scat sing, this is what you tell them. Really? Let me ask you something. Do you think Billie Holiday was a jazz singer? Now, they're not going to say no, that Billie Holiday was not a jazz singer. They, no way in hell can they say she wasn't.
Yeah.
And then you say that, well, she didn't scat sing. Okay? So if you're not comfortable scat singing, don't do it. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
But if you dig scat singing, then again, you learn the tune exactly as it's written. You get good chord changes and you get a little guideline. And that guideline will always be in your head as you're improvising. Trust me.
Yes. And Sheila, what
Yes.
if, what if, for example, I, it occurred to me a few times. I loved the tune. I loved the tune to a few songs, but couldn't connect with the lyrics. But I loved the tune so much, the melody,
Yes.
that I learned the songs,
Good girl.
you know,
That's yes.
but the,
That's what
so
I hear.
what would you do with that? I mean, would
Okay.
you still sing the
I'm, I'm,
lyrics?
glad, I'm glad you mentioned that. Uh, when I hear a song, the first thing I hear is the melody. If it's a great melody, that's it for me. And then I hear the lyrics, and they're not happening. But the melody is so beautiful. I love the melody. That's what I listen for first. If the
Yeah.
lyrics not, change them. Change them. Simple.
Could
Just
do. What if you want to record it? You cannot change the lyrics, right?
yes,
Or can?
yes, you. Why can't you? I do it all the time.
Oh,
Why can't?
okay.
Why can't? I mean, there's a certain. I mean, especially if it's a title and the title of the song is in the lyric, then of course you have to at some point keep that title somewhere in the lyric. But no, it doesn't matter. That's your interpretation, especially in jazz. I mean, we can do whatever we want to with the song as long as we keep it within the context of the way it was written. You know, no, doesn't
Well,
matter.
thank you, Sheila. This was a great
No,
suggestion.
don't worry about that. The only thing is that, and you don't put on the thing like because you change the lyrics by us. No, we leave it the way it is. That's our that's our what do we want? A creative. That's our creative ability to be able.
Yeah,
That's the beautiful thing about jazz music is that we have this creative ability to change whatever we want to. We can change the
yeah,
melodies at some point
yeah.
within the chord change of the song,
Of
or we can
course.
change the lyrics. I've changed the lyrics to I've grown accustomed to the bass from I've grown accustomed to his bass. I
Yes.
changed it to I've grown accustomed to the bass. And I
Yeah,
was making the baby again. I've grown accustomed to the sound. I love it pound for pound. The highs,
yeah.
the lows, the strings, the bow, all of that. I changed that all around, but I don't change the title of the song. I mean, whoever wrote the song is still getting the royalties on that song.
Of course.
Um, and it's the way jazz music is. That's what's so wonderful about it. We can change it, but we don't change the title or the music itself. We
Yeah,
sing, we improvise on what's there, but when we originally do the song, it's going to still be the same title.
yeah. Well, sometimes I just realize years later that I was singing a song that I knew by heart because I never bring paper with me on stage. I know all my songs by heart. So sometimes years later, maybe teaching that song to my students, I realize I changed the lyrics, saying exactly the same thing, but probably, I don't know, I just changed them without realizing, but they still made sense and they had the same meaning, you know. So sometimes we
Hmm.
even do that without really meaning. I mean,
Well, of
we
course.
yeah, we
I
change an
understand.
adjective or
That's it. That's what it is. Absolutely.
yeah,
You got it. You got it. You know what I'm talking about.
yeah.
I miss you.
I miss you too, Sheila. I really hope this corona goes away, and I hope you will be touring so much and you will spend time in Italy and I will come to see you and not only me, all the singers who love you here.
Oh,
Nadia, Leonora, Tiziana, and you know, all the singers. I can't name them all, but you know, they love you so much and they miss you
it's
so much.
it's been such a joy to see your beautiful face and to talk to you. And I know how much you love the music and how dedicated and devoted you are to singing it and teaching it. And I just love the fact that this music has, the thing about this music, it's more respected in Europe than it is in the United States. I call jazz
Really?
music. Oh, yeah, it's not, I mean, yes, we have our audiences here, but these big shows that they put on, like for music, like the Grammys and or different, shows that they put on for give awards for music. They never mention jazz.
Oh, well,
They never, never,
here we
ever.
have different here we have different um, settings. You know, there's a setting for jazz, so all the jazz festivals, and that's all about jazz, or world music, jazz, you know, fusion, and then there's the pop part. They also have great big concerts concerning pop, and those are the biggest. But we do have a lot of jazz festivals here in Italy, a bit everywhere. So I mean, you know, we have the opportunity of having great musicians, both from abroad and from Italy.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm talking about once a year they have these award shows, TV shows,
Yeah.
and they present an award for the best whatever. They never have jazz on it. They don't even mention jazz. In fact, I love this woman, the ex First Lady, Michelle Obama. I love her. I think she's brilliant. There was just recently one of the shows for the best whatever they call it. It's one of these big time TV shows that give awards for music. They never mention jazz. They mention everything but jazz. She came on as a surprise guest, and they were shocked that she came on. She said, "Well, yes, I had to come on and support the music in America, America's music." And she named rap, R&B, and country. Not one word of jazz.
Oh,
No, they never mentioned it. They never mentioned jazz on any of these big time music programs. The ones that they give the awards. The only time this year they had a short minute because I think they gave uh, uh, they gave one of the awards to one of the saxophone players. I forgot one of the famous saxophone players. I can't think offhand now who it was. But anyway, they gave him an award. So they mentioned that briefly. and gave him this award, but that was it. But other than that, any other year, nothing. Nothing at all. It's like it doesn't exist. So I call it the stepchild of American music. It's the stepchild of American music. Never has been accepted, never has been part of what the music industry is about. Never has. I mean, as far as I'm concerned. So it's it's upsetting, and it's really the only true music we can call our own, which is American. I know where it started. Some woman came up to me one time after a concert and said, "Well, I don't know this music because I haven't been educated. I would have to go and study your music in college or in music school." And but I, really loved your singing, and I just wanted you to know. And she went on, and I said, "Excuse me, 1 minute. You think that you have to have an education to do this music?" And she said, "Well, yeah. If I really wanted to, know about it, I have to like go and study the music theory and all that." I said, "Where do you think this music started?" She said, "Well, yeah, in the colleges." I said, "No, no, no." I said, "It started in the cotton fields with the Afro population being taken away from their country
Their
and
land.
made turned into slaves and thrown into cotton fields to pick cotton for incredible long hours with very little to eat, no pay, and thrown in unbelievable, terrible places to live. That's how it started. How did these poor people, these poor African people, get by in the cotton fields, picking this cotton for endless hours, hungry, tired? They sang. They sang the blues. It started with the blues. And that's how it started. And she looked at me. She said, "Oh, really?" And I said, "Yeah, really." And
Well, the
it's a
problem the problem is that jazz music is not into the. I mean, we watch TV. Our young people here in Italy, they watch TV. They listen to, they go on YouTube, but they're not educated to listening to jazz. So, sometimes when I have my younger students with me, and I try to get them interested to a different kind of music, and I pick a few pieces that I'm sure they would love, and I get them to listen to that and say, "Listen to this. These are great musicians." They, you know, and they say, "I never listened to jazz, so I don't think I might understand it." But then when they listen to it, they say, "Wow, I like this." You know. So it's just because they're not used to it.
yeah.
They're not used to it.
Well, the point is, it's not about educating or them having to be educated in it. It's all
No,
about
they just
feeling. It's feeling. What do
yeah,
you feel? That's all.
yeah,
And especially keeping time. Ma, where's it? I mean, come on. It's not has nothing to do with anything else except what you're feeling. You're
yeah,
singing or playing from your heart and soul. These are great players, like Birdman. He was the one for me. I heard his feeling. I heard
yeah,
how he felt when he played, and the incredible songs that he wrote. I mean, all of these great players that are still alive, but a lot of them, I mean, just recently, they wrote a thing on Facebook, I think it was, about, you know, who their, who, who they felt were the greatest instrumentalists as far as their solos and what they played. Not one of those musicians mentioned Bird. Not one. They mentioned everybody. They mentioned John Coltrane. They mentioned all of these other people, but not one of them mentioned Bird. And I had to write on it and say, You mean to tell me all of you guys are mentioning all of, where do you think these guys that you mentioned got it from? They got it from birds. That's where they got it from. And I mean, I know that, and the people they mentioned would be the first ones to say I was right. But they don't, it's like, and I'm not going to let Bird die, man. I'm sorry. Because he's the reason. And if these kids don't know about Charlie Parker, I mean, I had this young woman one time at a workshop I did, a master class, because I always talk about Bird, of course. And she came up to me afterwards and she said, I'm a jazz singer, Mrs. Jordan. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Then you must know Bird. You know what she said to me? What kind of bird? What kind of bird? I said, well, if I have to tell you what kind of bird, then if you really want to be a jazz singer, you better go out and find out what kind of bird I'm talking about. Okay. But yeah, that's what I mean. Oh, Bird. But too, I also use his name so they know. Bird, Charlie Parker, his nickname
Parker,
is
yes.
Bird. Yeah, Charlie Parker. So anyway, but again, as I said, it is the stepchild of American music. That's how I've always thought of it. That the way it's been treated as a stepchild of American music. Isn't that too bad?
Yeah,
You know?
that's too bad.
But maybe that's why it's kind of special. Because the people out here that are trying to keep it alive, they know who Bird was.
And they're keeping it alive because they love it.
Yeah, right, exactly. And you know what? I love you. So there. I'm so glad to see you, Ava.
I'm so glad too, Sheila. I just
It's
feel like I
no,
want to hug you.
well, you fly over. Come on. Come on over and have dinner.
They will put me in quarantine.
Well, not if you come through the computer.
Here I am, Sheila.
Yeah, they're gonna fix that one day. It wouldn't surprise me, for God's sake. Oh my God, this is too much. Ah, okay, darling.
Yeah,
Anything else?
uh, well, for me, it's okay. I might just ask you if you have some new recording or something that you are going to record that you had in program.
Well, I've recorded a couple of songs on Dina DeRosa's new recording for High Note. So I'm on a couple of tracks. She wanted me to
Okay.
sing with her. I've been getting a lot of calls from other singers to be on their recording, like do a couple of tunes with them. As far as my own personal recording, yeah, I should be doing one, but I just haven't. Well, at the time, I just didn't have time to go and record. But I want to. I really want to record. I must do one last recording before I leave the planet. I'm going to be 92 in November. Yeah. So I think I should like get into the studio and just maybe do one last recording before I
You
leave.
should do that.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a long time. It's just getting it together and doing it. I would probably use Alan Broadbent. I don't know if you know his playing.
Yes.
He's a wonderful player, and he's a great string arranger. He did my very first string quartet album years ago, and I love Alan. And I'm going to be doing the strings with him, hopefully in October, if things are. I was supposed to do it before, but with this whole pandemic, it was canceled, and I was supposed to do it in Chicago at the Green Mill because I work there a lot in Chicago. It's a great club. But when this thing happened, we had to cancel the string quartet project, but hopefully I'll do it in he put me down again for the first weekend in December, so we'll see what's happening in December, and if everything is cool, I'll do the string quartet. But in the meantime, I am going to work on getting some repertoire together, finishing some repertoire that I want to record and do a recording before I pass on. Because I don't know where I'm going. We don't know where we go when we leave here.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know. We don't know. So I
But
want
you
to get.
have to continue being the jazz messenger. So please go and record as much as
Oh,
you can.
okay, honey, I will. Thank you, Ava. I love talking to you and give all my beautiful friends, Chappelli and uh, uh,
Atilio,
and Gianni.
Gianni,
Yeah,
Cazzola.
Gianni, yeah, of course. He's a trip. I love him, and I love them all. I love singing with all of those cats. They were just so beautiful. So every time I come to Italy, I don't worry about who I'm going to be working with. I know who I want to work with, and it's them.
Yeah,
It's
you've been
wonderful.
working with them for years
Yeah, they're wonderful.
and you
Uh,
recorded with them
yes.
and with Paulo Fresu.
Ah, Paulo. Oh my God, isn't he wonderful? Ah, he is so wonderful. He's he and Tom Harrell. He in Europe and Tom Harrell in America are my favorite living trumpet players. I love Paulo Freire. I think he's just incredible. Really incredible. I love him. And he's a nice man too. And got a beautiful family.
Yes.
Okay.
So
I just
Sheila, thank you so much.
my pleasure, my
Take
darling. You stay
great
well.
care.
Stay well, keep singing, keep teaching, and give my love to everybody over there because I miss everybody all over the world. I send you all my love and hugs and kisses. And everybody, do me a favor, keep jazz alive. Three words,
Yes.
keep jazz alive. All right? Bye bye.